Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Noell.
And I'm John Suarez.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about the Enhanced Evolution deck, but switch it up to run one of my favorite commanders from this set, Zaxara, the Exemplary, as the commander. I'm real excited about this one.
I'm sure you are.
I have already switched over my Tassiker Villainous Wealth deck to Zaxara, the Exemplary deck. So Zaxara is a Nightmare Hydra for 1 black, green, blue. It's a 2/3. It has Death Touch. It says tap, add 2 mana of any one color, and whenever you cast a spell with X in its mana cost, create a 0/0 green Hydra creature token, then put X +1/+1 counters on it.
Yeah.
Be still my heart. I love this card so much. So, we're going to take this in a big X spells theme, essentially. There's not much to it. A lot of these cards are just going to be either X spells or spells that are really going to care about counters or adding extra mana or something along those lines in your deck. So the first one that we've got is one that I know some people are a little hesitant to run tutors in their decks. Some people don't like it. Some people are like, yeah, they just go get combo pieces and stuff a lot of times. This one I really like because it is kind of expensive cost-wise, and it will get you multiple cards, which is one of my favorite things about it, and that's Diabolic Revelation. So it's a sorcery for X, 3 black, and it says search your library for up to X cards and put those cards into your hand, then shuffle your library. So it's a little bit more than Diabolic Tutor, Demonic Tutor, all that stuff, with it being a 5+ X. So at minimum, it has to be a 6 cost for you to go get 1 card.
Yeah.
But I think it's really good, especially when you get up there. If you can drop Zaxara on 4, play another land, cast this, then you've got, you know, a few cards that you can go grab.
Yeah, that card shines. 6 is not great. 7, it's okay. 8, it starts getting obnoxious. Yep. You start generating 3 cards off of it, that's when it starts getting silly.
Yeah, and if you're like me and you want to cast that Villainous Wealth, you got to go get your pieces that are going to make it shine. So you dump a couple mana into the X, you get your 3/3 or whatever from Zaxara, you go get your Villainous Wealth, you go get your other card that we're going to talk about next, Unbound Flourishing, and then also like maybe a land that you need to help it out. So, yeah. Very solid card. Very solid tutor.
Speaking of the card we were talking about next, Unbound Flourishing, this card would be great to have in play even before you cast Diabolic Revelation. So, Unbound Flourishing, 2 colors and a green. Enchantment, whenever you cast a permanent spell with mana cost that contains X, you double the value of X. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell or activate an ability, if that spell's ability, or that spell's mana cost, or that ability's activation cost contains an X, copy the spell or ability, and you may choose new targets for the copy. A lot of words, a lot of text. This card is the, we talked about in other decks or other videos where Anointed Procession was the token staple. Unbound Flourishing is the X card. Like,
yep,
this is the card you need to have if you're going to play flashy X spells.
Yep,
without a doubt.
Yeah, it was Sheldon asked me shortly after the decks were revealed, the deck lists were revealed, and said, hey, if you were going to change out 1 card or add 1 card to the Sultai deck, what would it be? And I immediately said Unbound Flourishing.
Yeah.
Like, just goes right into it.
Yeah.
Doesn't even matter if you're playing Otrimi as the commander. There are enough X spells in the deck that it just makes it worth it.
Yep, for sure.
The next one is one that I have actually put into my Zaxara deck over Tempt with Discovery. A lot of people aren't tempted anymore. You really want to go get your Cabal Coffers, your Urborg to make your Villainous Wealth bigger. So Leahs Intervention. It doesn't put the lands into play, but it is green X for a sorcery. Choose 1, search your library for up to X lands cards, reveal them, then put them into your hand, shuffle your library, or it deals twice X damage to each creature with flying. So if you have something like Unbound Flourishing out, you can go get several lands pretty easily, just right out of your deck into your hand. Again, like I said, Tempt with Discovery puts them directly into play, but oftentimes you're not going to be able to get the 2 cards that you want, the Urborg and the Coffers.
Yep.
So definitely worth it. Also helps to deal with a lot of people who are maybe playing a bunch of flying creatures and just hurricane right out.
Yep. So the next card is definitely something I had never seen. This was definitely something you found. Choking Vines. X in a green, instant from Weatherlight. You can only play it when blockers are declared, is what it says. Yep. X target attacking creatures are considered blocked. And then Choking Vines deals 1 damage to each of those creatures, which is pretty cool. This is a really sweet fog effect that can also just start pinging off creatures pretty quickly. I like that.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to put it in there. Again, it's just one of those, like, every one of these videos and, like, most of my decks, I want to put in one, like, kind of obscure card, something that's kind of neat, and Choking Vines definitely fit that bill for me. This is in my Zaxara deck right now. I just think it's a really neat effect. So you get to say, all right, you're coming at me. All right, we're going to fog. We're going to deal 1 damage. So if any of those are X1s, they're gone. And I get to create an XX Hydra to block with and say, all right, you know.
Yep. So I get they're still blocked, but now my giant creature is actually blocking them.
Yeah.
So
because it's only during the declare blocker step, so it's during that step you get to still declare it as a blocker.
Okay. Very cool.
So that one I think is really cool. The next one is one that's a little bit more recent. It's going to be in Steelbane Hydra, which actually came out in the Brawl decks at the end of 2019. So this is a Turtle Hydra for X green. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. And for 2 and a green, you can remove a counter from it to destroy target artifact or enchantment. Pretty straightforward. It's just, it comes in with a bunch of counters on it. If you've got Zaxara out, you get your other Hydra, and it's a repeatable instance of artifact and enchantment removal.
Very sweet card. Do you think all of the turtle heads can go inside the shell?
All at once?
All at once. That's not. Doesn't look like there's that much space in there.
No, it doesn't really look like it. Not from the art. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of heads.
Yeah. Speaking of a lot of heads.
Yeah. Speaking of which, the next card we have is Ferocious Hydra. X green 0/1 creature Hydra with trample, and when it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters, and then it also triggers when it enters the battlefield, and you have the option of 2 choices: double the number of +1/+1 counters on it, or it fights target creature you don't control. Very, very sweet card to be able to pump all your mana into, kill any creature in play, and if not, just have a giant trampling creature. And obviously, if you have Zaxara out, you end up with a giant Hydra as well. So
yeah, another Hydra. Unbound Flourishing lets you get another X counters on it, so you can have your Unbound Flourishing, pay 4 for this. You get to double X, make it 8 already. Yep. You can double it again if you want to, or you can fight something. Just works out really well, and then you just have a giant trampler. So
very cool card.
This has definitely been one of my favorite cards in recent standard, just to play in like a me and my blue-green X decks. So the next one I think is a very solid card draw spell in this deck. Mind Spring's already in the deck, and that's one of the cards that we were talking about cutting. I think this works out very well in its place.
It's a very good replacement.
Very good replacement. Finale of Revelation. So it's basically the same mana cost, X blue, draw X cards. So same effect, except it has, in addition to that, if X is 10 or more, instead shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, untap up to 5 lands, and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game, and then you have to exile it no matter what X was. So
yeah,
very, very solid. In a lot of my decks that are like this, in my original version of Tasigur, I have things like Praetor's Council and other stuff that could get stuff back to from your graveyard into your hand. This works out well because it actually just shuffles that back in. You get to draw a whole bunch of cards. You get to have that no maximum hand size effect, the same sort of thing, and then just have a huge amount of cards left over. Yep. So very, very solid card.
Very sweet card for sure. So our next X spell coming up is Curse of the Swine. X blue sorcery, exile X target creatures. For each exiled creature this way, or each creature exiled this way, its controller puts a 2/2 green boar into the battlefield. Pretty sweet card. Very good X spell. That is a removal spell in blue, which is pretty rare. This is probably the only one, actually.
I think so, as far as an X spell is concerned.
Yeah, I don't think there's any more. This is a very, very sweet card to just be able to clear your opponent's boards, make a giant Hydra with Zaxara.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're threatening you with like a bunch of bigger creatures, or if there's any problem creatures especially, that's like one of the big things is just, hey, we're going to get that out of here. You get a boar in its place. So
Yep. Very sweet.
And it exiles them, which is really, really good against anything that's trying to like recur stuff out of the graveyard.
Or is indestructible.
Things like that. Yeah, so very, very solid. The next one is another one that's going to help you out. It's not an X card, but it's one that's going to help you out with your X cards, and that's Krufix, God of Horizons. It's a legendary enchantment creature god for 3 green-blue. It's a 4/7 indestructible. And as long as your devotion to green and blue is less than 7, it isn't a creature. You have no maximum hand size. Again, similar thing. I really like that effect of not having to pitch stuff to my graveyard. And if unused mana would empty from your mana pool, that mana becomes colorless instead. So it just kind of hangs out on Krufix until you're ready to use it later down the line.
Yeah. What was that? Upwelling? Was that card? The original version of that, I think it was?
Yeah, I believe that's what it was.
Let
me look that up.
Yeah, Upwelling.
Yep, mana pools don't empty at the end of phases or turns for 3 and a green.
It's a sweet effect, especially in a deck that is just trying to cast giant X spells.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely one that I've had in that deck for quite a while. Just at the end of my turn, I'm just going to pump the extra 4 untapped that I have left over, put it in there. All right, now we're going to use that extra 4 on my turn. So.
Yep. All right, so the next card we have, I've actually been playing with this card a little bit, but not in Commander and not paying X. But the next card we have is Altered Ego. X 2 green blue 0/0 shapeshifter. Altered Ego cannot be countered, and you may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with X +1/+1 counters. Very sweet card. I've been using this like a lot of the world, putting Garuda into play in various formats and creating copies of that. But in this deck, being able to make a clone that is massive is pretty good. Obviously, with the namesake Commander, you'll make an additional Hydra with it too, which is fantastic. But clones are excellent. This one being able to make a giant creature clone is great. So, big fan of this card.
Yeah, it enters with, it enters as the creature with the extra counters on it. So if you're playing something like there's a couple of creatures in here that I actually know were pretty big ones. If you were playing something like one of your more mutate creatures or something like that, same sort of situation where it comes into play, it has that base power toughness plus gets all those counters on it. So,
which is sweet,
which is super, super solid.
Yep.
The last X spell that we have is one that will help you protect your other stuff pretty well, and that is Power Sync. So there are actually a lot of different options for this style of effect. Instant, blue, and X, counter target spell unless its controller pays X. So there's a bunch of different cards that have basically that text on it. This one actually has the added benefit of if he or she doesn't, that player taps all lands with mana abilities he or she controls and empties their mana pool.
Yeah.
So it really helps out when somebody's trying to go off with something big. You just counter, you have to pay X. If you don't, you tap whatever's left over. Because if your X is higher than their amount of mana left over, then they're just done for that rest of that turn.
It's also nice if they're trying to like bait a blue player's counterspell out, because this will it'll counter it. If they don't want to pay the X, then they don't get to play anything else for the rest of the turn, because you're going to tap them out and drain their pool. So, very sweet card.
Didn't say the magic word.
Yeah, this card's been, it's literally been played since the dawn of Magic, all the way from Alpha. Like, I get to play this card a lot, so I'm a big fan of it.
That is fantastic. The last card I'm actually going to take, if that's okay.
Of course.
Of course. And it's another one of my favorite cards, and that is Cynic Ascendancy. Almost won with this on a game of Commander Versus with my Zaxara deck a little while ago. It's an enchantment for a green and a blue, and it says 1 blue-green, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Seems innocent enough. Whenever one or more 1/+1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game.
You will never win the game if I'm there, Jeremy. I'm just telling you now. I'm not letting it happen.
I know you love alternate win cons.
Yes.
This is one of the few that's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. It's a sweet card. I'm a huge fan of alternate win cards. They're my favorite way to win in a game of Magic, period. Milling is fun. Poison is fun. alternate win conditions the best. One of my biggest gripes is that I can't play Battle of the Wits in Commander. That's my biggest, one of my biggest issues, because I would love to win a game with Battle of the Wits again.
Battle of Wits, Coalition Victory.
Yeah,
Coalition. A couple of them.
Coalition Victory, I kind of get. Like that,
it makes sense.
Yeah, that one's going to be easier to do than most people think. So.
For sure. So that is our big X spells for Zaxara the Exemplary. There are a couple of cards that we're going to talk about. We already kind of talked about some of them coming out. As we've talked about in this series already, Bonder's Ornament, you can take that right out most of these decks pretty easily. Mind Spring already gets replaced with something like Finale. There are plenty of other effects of that same nature that are blue-blue or blue-blue-blue X, draw a bunch of cards, and have other effects. The other thing I think is that you probably want to take out some amount of the mutate cards. You don't necessarily want to take out the whole lot of them, but there are things like the Cavern Whisperer, the Glowstone Recluse,
the Trumpeting Gnar,
Trumpeting Gnar,
there's
stuff like
a
that
bunch
that you can take out. You can probably take out, if you're going to take out like a bunch of the mutate cards, you can probably also take out things like Silent Arbiter, which really cares about, like, you're only attacking with one creature per turn. If you're going to be making a bunch of Hydras, you don't want to be restricting yourself to attacking or blocking with one creature. And then things like Widewind the Biting Gale, which is just another creature to mutate onto, really, that has like the Flying and the Death Touch abilities on it. So there's a couple of creatures like that, or Vorapede is another one that you can kind of pretty easily take out in place of some of these other big X spells. So, all right. So if you like what you saw, make sure to comment below and tell us what cards you would add to a deck with Zaxara at the helm. And remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'm Jeremy Noell for John Suarez. Thanks for watching.